Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hi, ladies. We are so excited to have you join us today for our first ever E2 Women's podcast. I have with me Maria Houpt and Christina Bledsoe, two very good friends of mine and good friends of E2. As you know, Christina's on staff. Maria's going to tell us a little bit more about her connection with E2 as we introduce ourselves. So again, we're just very glad that you've joined us today. We hope to build a relationship with you, whether it's through Zoom or our Facebook page or just however we can make a connection. In 2023, E2 has been looking at the word stronger. That's going to be our overarching theme for the year. And for January, we're looking at specifically stronger purpose. And so we're here today to just have a little chat. You notice Maria has her coffee there, a little coffee chat about stronger purpose. So to start our morning together, we kind of want you to get to know us a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina to share a little bit about her story.
Hello. So I find it interesting that purpose is our word this month, because for the first time in my life, my adult life, I'm sort of questioning my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing and where I'm supposed to be going. A little bit about me. I am married to a great guy. We are a blended family. It's a second marriage for both of us, and my children are adults. His child is an adult. Everyone's out of the house. Everyone's self-sufficient, knock on wood. They don't need me on a daily basis. I'm not going to basketball games or track meets or cross-country meets. I'm not doing any of the things that really made me feel needed or important. I also had a 26-year career that I left behind about a year and a half ago, and I'm now working part-time for E2, which is something I never thought would happen, being a part of a ministry. It's exciting, it's different, it's so it's just out of my realm of thinking that I would be here. So I wanted the opportunity to serve more. I prayed about that a lot. And when I started working part-time, I knew I would have the opportunity to serve more, but it still feels like something's missing. So honestly, I'm struggling with that. Not necessarily struggling. I trust. I know it will eventually make sense, because anytime I look back at my life, even in the darkest, hardest, most soul-crushing moments of my life, I know that I can look back and I always see the hand of God at work. So this isn't a hard time. It's not a soul-crushing season, but it is just a season of kind of waiting, and I'm not so good at waiting. So one of the things I did in preparation for today was just to look up what the definition of purpose is. Purpose, how Webster's dictionary defines it, is something set up as an object or an end to be attained. So I thought that was interesting, because when I look at that definition, the end we all want to attain as Christians is heaven, right? I mean, no one wants to die, but when that time comes, we want to know we're going to be in heaven. So if that's our purpose, then every time I'm serving in MOPS, changing a diaper, wiping a nose, if I'm serving my life group, when I serve my family, when I make dinner for my husband, if I'm doing it with a cheerful heart and love, then I'm on my way to finding my purpose, right? That's how I'm choosing to look at it. I'm in the waiting, or I'm in the meantime, but I know I'm finding my purpose. Every now and then I say, hey, God, a little quicker would be nice. don't know if my purpose is, maybe I'm waiting on those grandkids that I've been promised, and maybe that was going to really solidify my purpose. I don't know. I don't know. So don't have it all figured out by any means, but I know from experience that I will look back on this time of kind of getting to take a breath in life, which I know I don't take for granted, because there was a lot of times when I didn't have a second to catch a breath, whether it was because I was in pain or I was working ridiculous hours. This breath is a good thing, but I'm also a creature of needing to know what's next. So I know it's teaching me something. So that's where I'm at. From previous conversations, I think my friend here, Maria Houpt, might have some similar feelings, but I will let her tell you where she's at and how she's finding her purpose at this stage in life.
Yeah, I can do that. But first, just to say, yeah, I totally identify with what you're saying. That waiting is hard. Even when you see the stepping stones, you can look back and see the stepping stones that God has laid out for you, and you're on that path, and you know that you are where you are supposed to be, where He wants you at this moment. I don't know where it's taking me, which is what it sounds like you were saying as well. You're supposed to be where you're at, but you're not quite sure where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally feel that. I had been a stay-at-home mom for maybe 25 years. This summer, once I left my nursing career behind, I never went back to work. Mark and I have been married 25 years, and our boys Sam will be 24 this week. Joshua let me go back. Sorry, Sam will be 24 this week. So by the time people are seeing this, he's 24, and he is a lieutenant in the Air Force stationed in Colorado Springs. Joshua is 22, just graduated with his bachelor's in business admin and marketing. And Ben, our youngest, is 19, and he is a youth ministry major at LCU, Lincoln Christian University. And so I've been a stay-at-home mom all this time. And when they were little, I was a MOPS coordinator for a few of the MOPS groups at different times at the Creek, so a long time ago. And then when I stepped down from that, because there were some health issues with our middle son, I stepped down from that. I knew that it was a time just to take care of my family. That was my ministry. I did some behind the scenes things, of course, served in different ways, but didn't take on anything big, like coordinating a MOPS, starting MOPS groups, that kind of thing. And then when Sam, the oldest, was a junior in high school, Mark, my husband, had said, you need to think about what you're going to do when these boys are grown and gone. And yeah, right, honey. Okay, sure. Didn't want to think about it, because that hurt. Because I was mom. That was my identity, and wife and mom. And I knew other things, but I didn't really know anything else, because that was just what I felt like was my full identity. It was tough. So I knew that I had to think about it. Excuse me, and never really did, And as the boys got bigger, realizing, I got to start planning, because I can't just sit around doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And then let me think. Almost 2 years ago, I think it was, we'll say May or June, 2 years ago, so 2021. Yeah. I had, in the spring, I had coordinated, and it was a, following, what's the phrase, a rabbit hole, going down the rabbit hole. coordinated a NIF gathering conference at our church for the ladies. From there, found Christine Kane, who is a phenomenal female preacher.
Yes, she is.
Excuse me, started following her on Facebook, saw that she had this group called Propel Women, started following that on Facebook. So just kind of followed this rabbit hole and found that this Propel group has joined with Wheaton College, which is just 2.5 hours north of us, for a, it's just for Propel, well, not just, but it's for Propel women to get a master's degree in evangelism and leadership, and Christian leadership. And I never had any plans of going back to school. As I said, I was a nurse, left that long time ago. Never planned to go back to that. Never had any thought to go back to school, but following, those, that traveling down that rabbit hole, I really felt like once I found that Wheaton and Propel had this connection, I really felt like that was what I was supposed to do. And that it was shocking. And I have no Bible degree, no bachelor's in Bible or anything like that. But I knew that was what I was supposed to do. So I sat on it, prayed about it for a couple of weeks before I talked to Mark about it. And he said, that's what you're supposed to do, then you do it. And seriously, I signed up to, had to do a resume. I had never done a resume before. I was a nurse 30 years ago. We didn't need resumes then. Had to write a resume, essays on why I should do, why I think I should do this, everything was done, boom, 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 because the semester was starting. And 2 weeks later, I started a master's program at Wheaton College. And it's the program that we are in is all women. And the women that I started with, I will graduate with. And yeah, so the majority of us, will stick together the entire time. And so all that to say, same thing I said earlier, I see the steps, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I don't know why. I've done, past couple of years, a lot of women's ministry things at our church, coordinating the IF conference to be held in IF local, ladies tea. I lead Bible study now. So I know it's women's ministry that he wants me to do, but specifically how, I don't know. And I have gone from being mom and wife first, wife and mom, and not knowing it's probably the wrong phrase to say not knowing anything else, but not wanting to be anything else, to enjoying the almost empty nest, the time with Mark, the time we get to travel together and doing ministry together. I mean, there's not a lot he can do in women's ministry since he's a guy, but he helps me out when possible, like coordinated a ladies' tea last year. So he took care of the kitchen and the guys and serving the food, so I mean, he helps me out and vice versa, however I can help him out with E2 stuff, which there's the link, and that's why I'm here. He's the chairman of the board of directors of E2, and just we work well together, and it has been a total blessing and such a joy to do that with him and to reconnect with you, Deb, and to meet Christina. So
it's been a good relationship. I've known Maria for many, many years.
Yeah, a long time.
25,
because Mark and I were dating. So
Absolutely,
26,
yeah.
Actually now 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've known one another for a long time, but so it's been fun to reconnect because I think we failed to say in the beginning that Christina and I are in Indianapolis and Maria is in Illinois.
Yeah.
So,
Lincoln, Illinois.
Yeah. So it's been good to reconnect, even if many times it's over Zoom.
Yeah.
And
when it's in person, it's way too short.
Yes, I agree. And I
Yes.
think, too, Maria, when you were telling your story, I can absolutely picture it in my mind, Mark coming to you when the boys are teenagers and saying, you need to plan the next steps. Because Mark is such a forward thinker. Like
Yes.
it's almost intimidating that he constantly, well, no, but we need people like him in our lives because he's constantly challenging the status quo and constantly saying, okay, you did this, great job, here's your pat on the back, now what are you going to do next? But not in a degrading way or in a you're not enough way, just in an always challenging, he's always challenging himself.
Yes,
so
definitely he is.
How that translates to challenging you, not because he wants you to be doing something, but because he wants
absolutely
you. And he's probably, my guess is he's the same way with the boys too. But
yes.
I can see that in my head, that conversation, and and you going, what?
Yeah, what? I'm happy here.
It's good. It's an example of God giving you a partner that's challenging you.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knows you're not going to be happy doing nothing. He knows you won't be happy doing, well, you wouldn't sit around and do nothing, but once he doesn't want you to wait till you have a completely empty nest to figure out, oh my goodness, I have an empty nest. Now what do I do?
Now what do I do? Twiddle my thumbs, watch Netflix, eat, put my feet up, eat bonbons. Yeah,
exactly. I can
do that, but to do that full time, no.
Exactly. So what is it like being a student again, now that you're
after all these years, 29 and a half. I'm proud of my age, 57. So I went back when I was 55. So I had been out of school for 34 years. And it was scary. It still is. Thankfully, we don't have have tests or anything like that. Because the memory is just like not there anymore. So it's a lot of paper writing. And again, having been a nurse in school, that was not a lot of what we did, except for like English comp or philosophy class kind of thing. So those first few papers I had to write, I had no clue. I mean, to say no clue is an understatement. And Mark helped me tremendously. And it was my thought, when I signed up, I said, okay, I'm going to do 1 or 2 classes and see how it goes. We're just going to, and then I'll decide if I'm going to stick with it.
And to put your toes in.
Yeah, exactly. See if I can do this at this age. And I loved it. 2 of our 3 semesters a year, we have an intensive week where we all meet up in Wheaton, and we have, we have class from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, a full-time day, full-time week in class, even though we have the entire semester to do the work, to learn. And that first intensive week, almost 2 years ago, was so intimidating. Mm-hmm. These women were talking Christianese like I had never heard before. And but it was so fascinating. And the professor, just so many words that flew over my head. I couldn't keep up with him because I was constantly dictionary.com, checking out on my computer, what does this mean? What does that mean? And, so then I'd lose 5 minutes, but even like towards the end of the week, our oldest had called me just to see how it was going. And he even said, he said, you are having a blast. He said, I can hear it in your voice, how excited you are. And I was, it was really exciting. And even if I'm not, I wish I was learning more Bible. I'll just have to do that on my own, but I'm learning more concepts, for lack of a better word. I am learning things that I will use in ministry, and so it was scary and intimidating, but it's really good.
Yeah, what a neat example you're setting for your kids too, that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can always find a new purpose, and your purpose might change, and not to be
true.
not to be
I hope
scared.
so.
Well, I think one thing I hear from both of you is our purpose, there should be joy in our purpose. And when we lose that joy, we need to be searching
Right.
for the what's next. Yeah.
Right. And joy doesn't mean it's always going to be easy.
Right.
It
There'll
to
be
me, it just means that God is in it and you're where
Yeah.
he wants you to be. And, and you recognize that. And that's the joy, even through the tough times.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Good.
Debbie, what about you?
Well, as everybody can tell, the hair is a little bit grayer than my colleagues here.
Oh,
So,
mine's there.
I don't know. You look close.
So I've probably had a few more chapters in my life. I married very young. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 50 years. I'm very proud of that.
You should be.
Because there were so many challenges. It wasn't 50 years of joy. There were a few years in there that were a challenge, not only in our marriage, our relationship with one another. There was one point where it was like, okay, I think we're heading toward the divorce court. We had some very wise people step into our lives and really counsel us well and taught us how to fight fair. And so there's great reward in that. So we married young. I was a young mom. I was 21 when my daughter was born. My goodness gracious, I didn't know anything. I was a kid. But what a blessing she was in our life. Krista was her name. And unfortunately, she had cystic fibrosis, which took her at the age of 22. So I've been without her for more years than I had her at this point in my life, but still considered a great joy. She taught us a lot about living. I think kids who have issues, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, they see life in a totally different way. And if we pay attention to them, they know how to teach us. They know how to teach us how to live.
Yep.
So she did. She taught us very well. In her high school years, we began having exchange students live in our homes. So over the course of, 8 years, we had 7 kids that lived with us.
Wow.
So wow.
I didn't realize you had that many in that short of a time.
Yeah. And so we consider them our children. We still are in touch with the majority of them. In fact, one of our Mexican sons will be here next month with his family. So we'll meet our grandson for the first time. So we're very excited about that. But, after Krista died, there was a period of time that's like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? And Christina, to your point, something you said, we were kind of in God's waiting room is kind of the way I saw it. What's next? And it took a long time, 5 years. And 5 years after she died, God opened an incredible door for us to begin full-time ministry. Never would I have anticipated in any way, shape, or form that I would be a person in full-time ministry. We grew up in the church. We met in the church. That's where Jim and I met. We met in the church, got married. Our daughter grew up in the church. So we had always been actively involved. I served on the church board back in the days when we had a church board at the church we grew up in. Sunday school teacher, VBS director. As Maria mentioned earlier, when we came to the Creek, I was a MOPS mentor for a period of time, always in small groups. So we had a lot of faith background, a lot of church background, never dreamed we'd be in ministry. God opened the door for us to serve with TCM International Institute, and not just serve with them, but to serve in Austria at their Haus Edelweiss location. So we lock, stock, and barrel moved to Austria in 2002 and lived there for 9 years before we came home at the end of the academic year in 2010. During that period of time, we knew we were exactly where God wanted us to be. I knew that my purpose was to serve the students. Our students were pastors and church leaders from, at that time, just some Eastern European countries, but men and women already actively involved in ministry. And my job was overseeing the campus activities. Jim's job was to take care of the facilities. So we were in constant touch with men and women who taught us so much about living a godly life. Their backgrounds very different from ours. So I knew what my purpose was. And then through, because our parents were aging, especially Jim's, his parents were quite elderly at the time, we really felt like it was time for us to come home. So we transitioned back to the United States. And let me tell you, if anybody has ever lived internationally, people talk about it being difficult to move to a foreign country. It's even more difficult to move back to the United States after you've lived internationally. That's another topic for another day, but very true. So we moved back to the States. I was able to continue serving with TCM. So again, I still knew what my purpose was, but the hair was getting greater, and I was and I was nearing the point where I'm going to be able to draw Social Security someday. So what is that going to mean? I cannot imagine giving up ministry. I cannot imagine not serving in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's time for me to think about it in a different way. And so my purpose, I began questioning again. And I had begun to interact with a few women in a very special way, one-on-one with a few women, and really felt a draw to spending more time in that type of relationship, more relational, one-on-one. And so I had the opportunity then to join E2 after I had made the decision it was time for me to move on. I gave my notice at TCM, and Gary was very, very gracious to invite me to come. And so I've now ended up here at E2. Hasn't been easy because, again, it's a totally new chapter of my life. And for me, I'm really entering the last, I won't say chapter, but the last area or arena of my life. I'm beginning to think about how am I going to age faithfully, and what's that going to look like? And as both of you have said, I'm still searching. It seems to be, we know what our purpose is. I know without a doubt, my life verse is, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I know that's my purpose in life. But how does that play out? What is my daily purpose? And so I'm still searching for that. Maria, you mentioned the stepping stones. We see the stepping stones we've come across. I can still see a lot of stepping stones out in front of me.
Yeah.
And what are those going to look like? Where are they going to take me? Yeah, so that's kind of where I am and in my purpose.
And genetics in Debbie's family are very good. So your mother is 96,
Yes.
96. So I think you might have a few more chapters left in you.
I'm hoping, because I think God's not finished with me.
No, he's not finished until we take our last breath. And
yeah.
I think that each of us have a story. We're all in different seasons, trying to find a purpose, but ultimately, like I mentioned in the definition of purpose, our purpose is ultimately, heaven. So I think we're each taking pretty good steps to hopefully earn our place. So thank you to everyone, both of you, Debbie and Maria, for telling us your story. Ladies out there, we would love to connect with you, whether it is through E2 Women on Facebook. We have a private page where you can request to join, and that is just a place where hopefully we can encourage one another and communicate on the social network. And we also have our annual Beloved Conference coming up. Our theme this year, sneak peek, is going to be Fear Not. If you're like me, if you're like a lot of people in the world, anxiety has been too too prevalent in my life. So we're going to talk about, fear not. How many times in the Bible do we hear fear not? And what does that look like to actually not fear today, tomorrow, and the next day? And that beloved conference will be held here at Indian Creek Christian Church in Indianapolis on June 23rd and 24th. More details to follow on that. We'd love to connect with you, hear your story, have a cup of coffee. Got a lot of years of experience, mine being the shortest, but I've been through some trials. Trust me, if you've got a kid that is just not paying attention, I'm your girl. Had some struggles there. So to close out, I wanted to share with you a poem. I won't be able to share the whole thing because you don't want to just hear me read and read and read, trust me. But it's a poem that I picked up from a mentor of mine, Laura Dingman, here at the Creek. She has an amazing Bible study that I will reference in the podcast notes if you're interested. But she read this poem and it has stuck with me ever since. It's very long, so I won't read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the last two paragraphs, but it's all about the stepping stones and being able to look back and see that God is in the waiting. So I'm just going to read the end and then we'll close out, and I will again list the full poem on the website notes. It's by Russell Kiefer, and it goes, "You'd never." This is God, the Lord, talking to us. Him saying, "You'd never know, should your pain quickly flee, what it means that my grace is sufficient for thee. Yes, your dearest dreams overnight would come true, but oh, the loss if you missed what I'm doing in you. So be silent, my child, and in time you will see that the greatest of gifts is to truly know me. And though oft my answers seem terribly late, my most precious answer of all is still wait."
That's great.
So
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning.
you.
Thank you, ladies out there, for being with us. We hope you'll join us again next month when we'll have another coffee chat. So Maria, Christina, I know I'll see you before then, but ladies, have a wonderful, blessed month.
Thank you.